Hello everyone! Today, I'll continue sharing the story of lytudiep with you. I hope it brings you a few relaxing moments. The next morning when lytudiep woke up, the house felt unusually quiet. The soft rays of early sunlight slipped through the window, casting a peaceful, almost serene light across the floor. Her stepmother and half-sibling had already packed up and left for her grandmother's house early in the morning, leaving only her and her father in the spacious home. Lytudiep sat silently on the bed for a moment, overwhelmed by a mix of emotions, a sense of relief because the nagging voice of her stepmother was gone, but also a sudden emptiness and fatigue after everything that had happened the previous night. She took a deep breath and reminded herself to stay strong. From now on, she was the only one who could take care of her father. Heading to the kitchen, Lytudiep began to cook a pot of hot porridge. She carefully rinsed the rice, sliced ginger, and chopped scallions, every step gentle and thoughtful, as if she were pouring her care and love into the meal. This wasn't just a simple breakfast, it was her way of looking after her father after a long night of heavy drinking. As the porridge started to boil, its aroma filled the kitchen, bringing a warm, familiar feeling. While waiting for it to cook, Lytudiep prepared some warm water to help her father sober up faster. She knew that despite his flaws, he was still her only source of support in this house. A while later, the sound of heavy footsteps came from the bedroom. Her father appeared, looking exhausted, hair messy, his face wrinkled from the hangover, and slowly shuffled toward the kitchen. Seeing his daughter bustling around the stove, his eyes briefly showed surprise before softening. "You're up, Dad? I made porridge already. Eat some to warm your stomach," Lytudiep said softly, almost as if afraid of upsetting him. He sat down quietly, gazing at the steaming pot. In that moment, he seemed to truly notice his daughter's maturity and gentle strength after all the storms they'd weathered. She didn't complain or blame him, she simply stayed by his side, caring with all her heart. That breakfast, though humble, was filled with the warmth of family. It also marked a new beginning. Lytudiep was learning to stand strong, and her father was slowly realizing his responsibilities after countless drunken nights. After breakfast, Lytudiep tidied up the kitchen and went to change for a new workday. She had accepted a job picking bamboo shoots for a family that specialized in making dried bamboo shoots near the forested hills. Though it wasn't easy work, for Lytudiep it was a chance to earn some income to help cover the household expenses. She put on her worn long-sleeved shirt, a wide-brimmed conical hat to shield herself from the sun, and strapped a bamboo basket to her back along with a small knife for cutting bamboo shoots. In the mirror, her face reflected both kindness and determination, that of a young woman ready to work honestly and build her independence despite life's hardships. When she arrived at the site, the family's owner quickly taught her how to identify good bamboo shoots and how to cut them without damaging the roots, so they could regrow for the next harvest. Lytudiep listened attentively, memorized every detail, and started working. She moved deftly along the hillside, pushing leaves aside, cutting bamboo shoots, and filling her basket. Sweat dotted her forehead, but her eyes shone with diligence and determination. Meanwhile, deep in a nearby forest, the atmosphere was entirely different. Officer Lee and his special unit were urgently chasing a dangerous group of criminals. The crackle of walkie-talkies, the barking of police dogs, and the pounding footsteps of officers shattered the quiet of the morning woods. Lee, one of the most experienced officers, ran ahead to block the suspect's escape route. Reaching a damp forest trail, he suddenly slipped on a layer of decaying leaves that concealed a deep pit. Before he could react, he tumbled down a slope, crashing into a large rock and losing consciousness. A short cry echoed through the trees, then everything went still except for the rustling wind and distant animal calls. The rest of the unit, occupied with the suspects, didn't notice that Lee had fallen behind. He lay motionless amid thick bushes, blood trickling from his forehead into the forest soil, his arm dislocated in pain. At that very moment, Tu Sam was still focused on her work, unaware that fate was about to lead her to a fateful and unexpected encounter. While Tu Sam was picking bamboo shoots on the hillside, her father decided to go to her grandmother's house to bring back her stepmother and half-sister. After the drunken night, he felt deep regret for causing the family to fall apart. When he arrived, he patiently apologized over and over again. At first, the stepmother was cold, and the grandmother scolded him harshly. But when they saw his genuine remorse, their hearts gradually softened. After some persuading, both the stepmother and half-sister agreed to return home on the condition that he truly change his ways. The three of them made their way back in a quiet yet relieved atmosphere, like a new beginning after days of tension. Meanwhile, Tu Sam was busy among the young bamboo groves, swiftly chopping the shoots and placing them into her bamboo basket, when suddenly, she heard a strange sound coming from the deep forest on the other side of the hill. The noise was faint but enough to make her pause, her heart tightening with an uneasy feeling. At first, she thought it was just an animal or the wind rustling through the trees. But the unusual silence that followed made her decide to take a narrow path to investigate. Crossing a patch of damp ground covered with decaying leaves, she discovered a man lying unconscious beneath a thick bush, his upper body slumped against a large rock. Her heart pounded wildly as she rushed over and knelt beside him. The man was unresponsive, his face pale, a long wound on his forehead oozing blood, and his arm was dislocated, twisted at an odd angle. She checked his breathing, it was weak but still there. A sense of relief flickered through her, but there was no time to hesitate. Tu Sam immediately took action. Having grown up in the mountains, Tu Sam had some knowledge of forest medicinal herbs. She quickly searched around and found familiar leaves with antiseptic and blood-clotting properties. She crushed them and applied them to the wound on his forehead. Then, she tore a strip from her own shirt to bandage the injury and secure his injured arm. Sweat dotted her forehead, and her hands trembled slightly from worry, but her eyes remained steady. This was no longer just a task, it was a fight to save a life. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, the forest grew dark and cold. Tu Sam realized she couldn't drag the man out of the forest alone at night, especially on dangerous terrain. She decided to stay through the night to keep watch, hoping that someone might pass by in the morning to help. She gathered dry branches and started a small fire beside him. The flickering flames chased away some of the cold and loneliness of the silent night. Sitting beside him, Tu Sam looked at the stranger's face. He was still unconscious, his breathing weak but steady. Worried he might get colder, she hesitated for a moment before removing her thin jacket and gently covering him with it. The night grew colder, and gusts of wind from the mountain pass made the fire dance unsteadily. Tu Sam moved closer to him and, gathering her courage, wrapped her arms around his freezing body to share her warmth. The gesture came not from calculation, but from the sincere compassion of a young woman alone in the wilderness. In the depths of the forest, the firelight cast flickering shadows on two unfamiliar faces, a determined young woman and an injured man lying silently. The wind, the chirping of insects, and the darkness wove together a scene that was both tranquil and fateful. That long night marked a strange turning point in Tu Sam's life, the night she unknowingly saved Officer Lee, the man who would later become deeply entwined with her destiny. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the forest canopy, Tu Sam slowly opened her eyes after a long, exhausting night. The crisp morning air and the chirping of birds brought the forest to life. She immediately turned to check on the injured man. Fortunately, his face looked less pale, his breathing had steadied, and most importantly, the fever had subsided. Relief washed over her, and she let out a quiet sigh. Knowing she couldn't stay in the forest alone for much longer, Sam decided to go find help to carry him out. She slung her pack over her shoulder and followed the narrow trail back toward the main road. After walking a short distance, she unexpectedly ran into her half-sister, someone who had never been kind to her. The girl folded her arms and narrowed her eyes mockingly. "What, you living in the forest now? Don't feel like going home anymore?" Sam intended to ignore her, but when she briefly explained that she had just rescued an injured man in the forest and was heading out to get help, her half-sister's eyes lit up with curiosity and calculation. She immediately changed her tone, half commanding, half pressuring. "Take me there. I want to see." Not wanting to waste time arguing, Sam reluctantly led her back to where the man lay. As soon as they arrived, the half-sister's eyes widened in surprise. The man was none other than Officer Lee, a well-known figure in the region. In that instant, an idea flashed through her mind. "Go get help quickly." "I'll stay here and watch him," she said urgently, giving Sam a slight push to hurry her along. Completely unsuspecting, Sam turned and ran down the mountain to find help. Moments after she left, Officer Lee slowly regained consciousness. His vision was still blurry as he saw the half-sister sitting beside him and quickly asked what had happened. Seizing the chance, she immediately spun a heroic tale. "I was passing by yesterday when I found you injured. I stayed all night to take care of you. I even started the fire and bandaged your wounds." Lee, still weak and disoriented, simply thanked her without a hint of suspicion. She then quickly helped him down the mountain and called for assistance to bring him home. Onlookers admired her, believing she was the one who had saved a police officer's life. Meanwhile, Sam was still desperately running around trying to find help, worried sick and completely unaware that her good deed had just been stolen. She had no idea this moment would spark a deep misunderstanding between her and Officer Lee, and complicate her relationship with her cunning half-sister. At the same time, back at the police station, Lee's colleagues grew alarmed when they lost contact with him and he failed to return on time. A search party was quickly organized. They fanned out through the forest, calling his name and working with search dogs to scour every area. The atmosphere was tense, everyone feared for his safety, knowing how dangerous the terrain was where he had disappeared. No one knew that Lee had already been led out of the forest safely earlier that morning, by Sam's half-sister. She deliberately kept silent, wanting to bask alone in the glory of saving a police officer. When Sam finally returned to the forest clearing with help, she froze in shock. The man was gone. The fire was cold, and the fresh tracks showed they had left not long ago. She stood bewildered in the silent forest, unable to understand what had happened. Heavy-hearted and confused, she trudged back home. Things only worsened when she arrived. Because she had abandoned her bamboo shoe-picking job midway, she had earned no money that day. Her stepmother exploded in fury. "You went to work and came home empty-handed? Useless girl," she spat, eyes filled with contempt. Her half-sister joined in, mocking and sneering relentlessly. Sam tried to explain that she had saved someone, but before she could finish, her stepmother struck her across the face with a sharp slap. "Who cares who you saved? I didn't raise you to play hero. No money, get out of my house." Her cruel words cut deep like knives. The stepmother didn't stop at insults. She pushed Sam out of the house, ordering her not to return until she brought back money. Her half-sister shoved her harshly, adding insult to injury. Driven out into the cold night, Sam wandered along the deserted village road with nowhere to go. She was exhausted, penniless, and utterly alone. Eventually, she laid out a torn burlap sack beneath a tree by the roadside and curled up beneath the chilly night sky. Silent tears streamed down her cheeks. She cried for her bitter fate, motherless, trapped in a cold and cruel family. She cried out of heartbreak, because despite doing the right thing, she was met with injustice and rejection. In the stillness of the night, her small figure curled up tightly, as if trying to shield herself from the relentless blows life kept throwing her way. That night, the young girl lay alone on a deserted roadside, consumed by loneliness and pain, unseen and uncared for by anyone.
Xin chào mọi người, rất vui được gặp lại mọi người trong video của mình. Hiện tại câu chuyện mình mang đến cho mọi người đó là câu chuyện của cô gái mang tên Lý Tử Sam. Và cuộc sống của Lý Tử Sam bất hạnh từ khi bố của cô lấy một người mẹ kế và mang về nhà thêm một cô em gái. Hôm nay trong lúc Tử Sam đi làm thì Tử Sam đã gặp người đàn ông bị tai nạn trong rừng và cô đã giúp đỡ anh ấy rất là nhiệt tình. Nhưng cô em gái sau khi biết được thì đã cướp hết công của Tử Sam. Liệu cuộc sống Tử Sam tiếp tục sẽ như thế nào, những khó khăn nào sẽ phía trước Tử Sam cô sẽ phải đối diện và vượt qua như thế nào thì mọi người nhớ đón xem ở video tiếp theo nha. Cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video ngày hôm nay của mình. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại mọi người nha.